my goodness, we are hurtling towards the end of the year at record speed. I want you to take a moment and have a think. Are you checking out already, or are you keen to keep the momentum going and increase your revenue for the final few months of the year? In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to share some practical ways that you can drive sales to bring home your 2024 strong. The end of the year might be approaching, but this doesn't mean that there aren't still opportunities for you to drive and grow your business for the rest of this year. So let's talk about some things that you can do to start to increase your sales even as 2024 draws to a close. Well, the first thing that I want you to do is take some time, take a step back, reflect, and learn from what your numbers are telling you from this year. So, what you're going to do is have a look back at your biggest months that you've had this year. And I want you to reflect on what was going on at that time. What were your offers? What was your pricing? Even how was your energy? Really take some learnings and lessons from what you can see from your results for the year so far. As part of that process, also have a look at what hasn't worked. So maybe there's some examples where you say, oh my gosh, the pricing around that particular offer or sale really missed the mark and I just didn't get the results there. Or maybe you've noticed that your consumers' behavior is changing. Maybe you notice that during winter, people weren't buying at the same rate that they were. I don't know. But have a look at the numbers, see what the lessons were, and also see if you can line up what was happening in your marketing and your messaging at that point in time. So were you perhaps being more consistent with emailing your email list? Were your reels on Instagram more engaging at that time? See if you can start to make a correlation or take any ahas from that reflection. The next thing, if you're wanting to bring home the year strong, is to work on your energy. At this time of year, you might be feeling tired. You might be feeling that your energy is drained. And the reality is in business is that energy is everything. So take a moment and reflect. How are you feeling physically? How are you feeling mentally? How is your mindset? And if there are some areas that need some help, this is the time to be doing that work. So are you really working on your self-care? Are you getting your exercise in? Are you doing yoga? Do you need to be setting some boundaries with your partner, your friends, your clients? How can you make sure that you are protecting your most valuable asset, your energy? Some of the things that you might need to do to support yourself in this space is leaning in and investing. I know for me, I've been working with a coach to help me work on my energetics, specifically in the space of money. And I've also just invested in a masterclass, again, in the space of money mindset. So have a look. Are there gaps? Are there areas that you need to work on? And write yourself a bit of a game plan to get your energy back on track, because this asset is incredibly important if you are wanting to elevate your magnetism and drive more sales in this final quarter. I've kind of spoke about this just then, but just to take it that next step further, take a moment to reflect on what investments you might need to make to end your year strong. Now, this is particularly relevant if money is feeling tight, because a lot of times what happens when we go into lack scarcity mode is that we are tightening our purse strings. And this might be really appropriate and relevant to do in some areas. You might need to really have a holistic look at your financial position. But something that I really do encourage you to do is to invest in the areas where you need it. I've just done a similar exercise myself. I've stepped back and said, what areas of investment do I need to cut back in? And what are the areas that I really need to be leaning into and investing here? So maybe you need some extra administrative support. Maybe you need some mindset support. Maybe you overall need to work on your energetics, get into a magnetic and uplifting environment so that you get that momentum back on track. But have a think. Really, is there areas that you need to be investing in right now? And last but not least is to have a look at your pricing and your offers. What you might need to be doing at this stage of the year is tweaking your messaging based on your clients' current pain points. So, the way that you may have been positioning your products or services earlier in the year or in years gone by might not be sticking with your audience right now. And let me just give an example. So, if you're a social media manager and you're finding that the industry that you work with, maybe you're finding that your clients are struggling, they're not leaning in and investing in the way that they used to. So rather than talking about scaling and really blowing up their business, maybe you really want to talk about meeting them where they are and saying, hey, if you are struggling right now, you need to be investing in your Facebook ads, in your social media to help support your growth through this period of time, or even to help maintain your business position during this period of time. Maybe the messaging about expansion and blowing up your business isn't resonating with them at the moment. So you might need to tweak the messaging. It might also be relevant to actually revisit what your price points and your offers are. Again, knowing your audience is absolutely key here. Where are they at? What are they struggling with? What are their pleasure points as well? Really be meeting them where they are rather than trying to have your generic messaging and your just take the thing that I've got. It's really about how am I connecting and showing them, I get you. I know where you're at right now. And here's why my product or service is exactly what you need right now. The final thing I just want to say about messaging, pricing, products, etc., is remind your potential clients why now is the time to be investing. Talk to them about the timing and urgency and connect that with the outcome that your product or service delivers. And let me again just explain what I mean here. Let's just go back to the example around being a social media manager. People might be sitting here at the end of the year thinking, yeah, I'll look into hiring a social media manager in early 2025. Tell your audience why now is the time to be hiring a social media manager. What's the urgency around it? And obviously, we don't want to create any false urgency. We don't want to be misleading in our messaging, but tell them why now is the time to be hiring you so that you are attracting these sales in before the end of the year. Hopefully, you've got some great tips there to help you finish out your 2024 strong. Let me know if this episode resonated with you. I'd love if you sent me a DM over on Instagram. I'm at Claire, CLARE _wood_coach. I always love when I get messages from my listeners. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast. And here is to closing out 2024 with a bang. Chat to you next week.